Hey everyone, thanks for joining Baltimore County Fire Department EMS Academy. For those I haven't met, my name is Sean Barinholtz. I'm adult anesthesia and critical care at Hopkins. I'm an active member of Pikesville Volunteer Fire Company, and I have the honor of serving as one of the medical directors in Baltimore County Fire Department. On behalf of the medical director's office, Director Pollack, on behalf of the EMS office, Captain Knatz, Director Shenning, Captain Willits, Captain Stewart, we thank you so much for what you guys do every day. We thank you for your dedication to lifelong learning. Tonight, we're going to talk about the iCARE program, Integrated Community Assessment Referral Evaluation, and we are incredibly honored to have the developers of this program for Baltimore County Fire Department, EMS Captain Danielle Knatz, Nationally Registered Paramedic, and serves as EMS 1A, EMS Lieutenant Amanda Wensel, National Registered Paramedic, and Opioid Ambassador for Baltimore County Fire Department. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate it.
All right, so thanks for having us. I think we talked about this months ago about doing this, and it's finally here. So Amanda and I are both very excited because this is a program that obviously the department has been working on for some time to get up and running, and our nurse manager Donna has done wonderful things for the community, and I think I can speak for probably a lot of people and say that we're looking forward to definitely, hopefully someday, being able to expand this office into not just one or two people, but an entire team of people. So those are the things that we're looking forward to doing. Okay, how do I advance? There we go. All right, so the goal of the program, obviously we've created an Office of Integrated Health, and like I said, we're trying to work on expanding that. Improving health in the community, so our EMTs, paramedics, they are out there on the front lines. They're the ones that are seeing these patients, and they're seeing firsthand the things that we need to provide to the community. So EMS is the best way to be able to get out there and see firsthand the things that people need. So we have that opportunity to impact the community in such a way to be able to help them with various different things. And there is a lot of things that we'll touch on and things that people may not even have thought about that we can do for the community. So we collaborate with other agencies. We'll get into that a little bit more and talk about the actual agencies that we work with. So we try to put a reduction in duplicate efforts. So by working with the other agencies, we can work together, whereas it's kind of like a physician prescribing medication. So one doctor's prescribing a medication and there are just multiple things. So if people would just work together like a pharmacy would, if you would use one pharmacy and say, oh, that's going to interact with that, so maybe we shouldn't do that. So we would work together with these agencies, and that way everyone is on the same page and we don't duplicate the efforts to try and help someone. And then streamline them to the appropriate agency. And this is really where Donna comes in, because she knows exactly, oh, this is the problem. This is the agency that we're going to use. So let's go directly to them instead of, working through multiple things and, troubleshooting. She knows exactly where to go. And so we are so lucky to have her as a resource for this.
In the iCARE program, we provide resources for our patients, like she said, that we encounter in our routine calls for service. We have a unique opportunity to identify these people. The goal is to create a healthy and vibrant community. Our objective for this is to create a mechanism for EMS providers to identify and refer at-risk and vulnerable people to existing county resources. So these are programs that are already in place, such as Adult Protective Services, AERS, Department of Aging. Our job is not going to be necessarily to fix all of the problems, but we're more of a linkage with the people that can. So we have that opportunity to assess, evaluate, and initiate referrals for people that have unmet social or medical needs. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if Captain Knatz is back on. I don't want to steal all of her thunder.
Yeah, we'll definitely admit her and let her know, but she's not in the waiting room yet.
Okay. AERS is one of the state mandated programs. This is for people that are 65 years of age and older. Types of referrals are for people that are chronically, physically, and functionally disabled adults. Usually they are mentally intact, they have capacity. Referral issues would include people that have medical and psychosocial problems. They need alternate living arrangements. So someone that lived on the 3rd floor and wasn't able to get up and down the steps. A referral and linkage to community service, and they also do a coordination of a list of other services, and we'll get into that when we go through the cases. Behavioral health and substance abuse. This is a list of resources that we have available for people that suffer from mental illness or substance use disorder. There's a geriatric service team. This is a community-based outreach program, and they also provide treatment. There is peers. This is a senior in partnership for socialization and support. This primarily has to do with seniors that are isolated. They can help provide volunteers to interact with seniors on a regular basis. That also helps keep them from becoming depressed and having issues from that. There's the mental health targeted case management system. This is case management for people with severe mental illness. There also is the Reach line through the Baltimore County Department of Health. This is only for people with substance use disorder and associated behavioral health problems. Everyone in the county should be familiar with how to interact with the Reach program, and if not, the district officer can certainly help you with that. They are the ones that provide our Narcan leave behind kits. Types of referrals that would be appropriate would be someone that has mental health issues or substance abuse issues that keep them from properly taking care of themselves or their families. They need psychiatric medication management, or they have issues with socialization, like the elderly that's isolated.
Captain Knatz is back too. You guys can decide.
Oh, great. Welcome back, Captain. Okay. The Department of Aging. This is kind of the gateway for the beginning of our referrals. We interact with them and find out if they have any services that they're already engaged with. Types of issues that would be encountered are people that have problems in their activities of daily living. They're not able to get up and down steps. They aren't able to drive to a doctor's appointment. They aren't able to cook meals anymore or go grocery shopping. So this is where Department of Aging comes in to help. So all of the referral issues that you see listed are services that they can provide to the elderly. And you have to be 62 years of age or older to qualify for that. And now my computer's not going to work. Okay. Adult and Child Protective Services and the Department of Social Services. This is crisis intervention for vulnerable adults and children, including abuse and neglect. These are our most severe cases. These are people that have unsafe living conditions, hoarding conditions, no running water in their homes, or they have unmet medical needs, open wounds, they haven't been to a doctor in years, they're being abused, they're being neglected. The Department of Social Services administers entitlement and benefit programs, and those programs are what are listed under the referral issues. People that don't have any money and need temporary cash assistance, they don't have food, so they APS will provide them with food stamps. They can't pay their energy bills, they give them money for that. They don't have health insurance because of their finances, so they provide them with medical assisting. Or they can't afford housing on their own, they'll give them subsidies for housing. For APS and CPS, it's very important that the provider understands that it is still their obligation to contact APS or CPS from the scene. You as a provider have that firsthand knowledge of the scene, and you're going to be able to paint such a better picture than it being done by someone else. Just telling the hospital is not enough. Just doing the iCARE referral is not enough. Please continue to do the iCARE referral so that we can follow up with it and make sure that APS is going to accept the case, or CPS. But it's still incumbent on the provider to do the initial referral. Okay, Captain Knatz, if you're back, do you want to pick up?
Yes, I'm back. Thank you. All right. So like we were talking about before, our interagency collaboration is very important. We have a shared infrastructure of service, data, accountability, and coordination of care. So this increases our efficiency and effectiveness. It enhances workforce integration. And then, like we were talking about before, it reduces this duplication of services, because if we're working together, it isn't one agency working, independently trying to fix the problem. It's working together, and we're able to accomplish a lot more doing that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I forgot I was the one doing it. I'm trying.
Okay. Nope. Not that.
Homeless resources. This is all of the programs that are available in Baltimore County for the homeless. Most of them are managed by the Department of Health, but not all of them. And as you can see, each section of the county, East, Central, and West, has a different program available.
All right, so SharePoint is the location where a lieutenant would submit an iCARE referral. So the referral form is located there. We also have a paper form that we like for officers to print out and keep handy, and we're going to go over the information that you're going to need to obtain. That's why it's very important that if you have someone that you identify is in need of any kind of service, to call for an EMS lieutenant. That way we can get them there, and they're able to collect the information, make their referral, and get that into the system. SharePoint is currently utilized by other agencies, so we're trying to look for ways to be able to share through that network. Patient-centered, so basically provides care that's respectful of, responsive to, and identifies their certain preferences. It's very HIPAA compliant, so every time you enter, you have to agree to a HIPAA statement, and then once a entry is made, only certain people have access to that information afterwards. And then it obviously supports care coordination, like we've been discussing, probably said that many times now tonight. So the iCARE form looks like this, if you can see it. It's basically just a paper version of the information that we would ask for when when the officer makes an iCARE entry. So things that are really important, especially right now, we're trying to get our fall prevention program up and running. So a lot of questions are centered around falls and any needs that a patient would have in respect to that. So Donna is looking at that right now and seeing where she can create a program to be able to specify to those needs of people that are having significant fall issues. Obviously, we want to connect this to an incident number, so it's important to be able to collect that data and be able to go back and look at EMS reports that way. We have to get verbal consent, so we can't and there's a few cases, obviously, with neglect and harm and things like that we can do without consent. But, if we're going to provide in-home care or services, we have to get consent for this to be able to happen. So that's probably the most important first thing, is getting verbal consent from the patient. Yes.
Some people have asked, number one, who's Donna? And number two, where do we get the form?
So Donna is our nurse manager. She came from the health department. She's been with us for probably 2 years now, I guess. She's works up at the EMS office. I would say pretty much every EMS lieutenant knows who she is, I would hope by now. And she's pretty much like the spearhead of this. Well, the project obviously started before she came, but she's the one that has kept it going. She's the one that knows the resources. She's the one that makes the referrals, and Amanda's been working closely with her. So
I think we have a lot of volunteers.
she's not in the limelight, that's for sure, but she should be. She's definitely, she's the person behind all of this right now. So probably not a lot of people know her unless you're up on the 4th floor and you'll see her. So that's who Donna is.
Thanks. I think we just have a lot of volunteers, for example. And
yeah, and I'm sure,
the...
if you're volunteering, I don't think she gets out in the field too often. We should probably get her out there. Have some calls with her. She probably doesn't want
give her a little response vehicle.
Yeah, I don't think she wants. She likes Amanda to drive her around.
And then where do we get the iCARE form?
So the iCARE form is located on the EMS officer drive. And the intention of that is because we want an EMS officer to come out to make this referral. So I think if we were to just blast this form out to everyone, then we would be afraid that we wouldn't have an officer there to make this referral. Now, obviously, if it's not timely to do so, that's why we want you to know that you've got to have consent. The patient has to consent to this. There's certain information that we need to get, and most of it's demographic information that if you transported the patient, we could get it from EMS. But again, there are some questions, like falls, if the patient's falling a lot, and questions about their daily living activities. So are they not able to do things for themselves that any other person would be able to do on a daily basis? And then a lot of it is about medical history, which again, if the patient is transported, and this is a timely thing where we can't bring an officer out because of their status or their situation, then a lot of this we can get from the EMS report. But most importantly, it's a lot of demographic information. And again, just some yes or no questions about falls and about their needs but again, the most important thing is that we need to have consent. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, great. So as volunteers or others on the crew in the front line, if we run into a situation and we have one of these social concerns, call the EMS lieutenant to come out or call and share what's going on, and they can decide if they're going to come out and file a referral.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're calling for a potential referral and the patient is not willing to transport, then I think that is definitely worthy of an EMS lieutenant to come out and check out. I don't think there should be any, conversation about whether or not they're coming. I think they should come and they should check it out and, be able to firsthand get this information and be able to make the referral.
Great, thanks.
Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, can we just pick up really fast because there's another question just came in. So
Sure.
What do you do if our EMS lieutenant is not available to come? Should we call Engine to come start paperwork?
So I think if they're genuinely unavailable, then certainly we don't want to hold up the process. So I don't know that calling an Engine would be the thing to do, but certainly the provider there could gather as much information as they can.
Right.
The most important thing, like I said, is the consent. And then if you can get a contact number, that way we can call them, and then we could probably make arrangements to come back at another time if we needed more information. But the consent and a contact number are probably the most important things.
Thanks.
Do you agree, Amanda? Is there anything else that you can think of that?
Worst case scenario, Monday through Friday, you can call Donna's office, which is 1930, I believe is the extension, and we can manually put it in for you should a district officer not be available. But that would be a last resort.
Thanks, you guys. That's all I see right now.
Okay. So like we discussed, getting that district officer there to put eyes on the situation and be able to get the information firsthand to make the referral is the ideal situation. Like we talked about, if that's not possible, Donna is a resource to do that, but sometimes she's so involved in things that she might be in the middle of another referral that she may not be able to help you right at the moment. So getting the information, you know, as much as you can, and at least the contact number so that someone can call them back or go visit would be the ideal thing to do then if a DO can't come out. Again, like we talked about, the verbal consent's very important and it's a must. And again, unless it's a situation where APS or CPS is involved for neglect or something like that, then we don't need to have verbal consent. And we have an obligation at that point to report that. So that's not just something that we're going to make an iCARE referral for. If we see neglect, abuse, things like that that are unsafe, harm to someone, then we have to report that through the police. We can't just report it to the nurse. That's not acceptable. We could call ourselves, APS, CPS, or report that to the police. Again, this is a process. It's not a quick fix. These things, especially right now during COVID, they take time. So we get it. You might be going out there a couple times, multiple times, but it's not that it's not being worked on. It's just that sometimes these things take multiple contacts and multiple agencies to try and figure out the right one and how they're going to fix it and what. So it's sometimes they take weeks, they take months. So just be patient. Donna does offer feedback to crews, so you know, we won't keep you in the dark, and keep in mind that you may still go out to a house or an apartment or wherever a few times until we can get it fixed. All right, so confidentiality is extremely important. Like I said, when an officer logs into the iCARE system, it will ask you to consent to the confidentiality statement. We are very committed to protecting health information. Names, histories should only be sent to someone that is intended to receive the information. All of our shift commanders and most of the EMS staff now have access to secure email. If you don't have access to secure email, then your subject line should be QAQI, confidential information. And that's the best way to hopefully protect the information. But again, confidentiality is very important, so keep that in mind. Anytime you're sending information, only send what you need to send. If there's an EMS report attached to the incident and we can get more information through that, then it's probably better to send the incident number if you don't have access to the iCARE form.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some real life cases that we've encountered. Case one is an APS referral, and since I have joined the Integrated Health Office, this has been our most challenging case. This is a 46-year-old female. She's on the west side. She had a spinal tumor. They removed it, and when they removed it, she was paralyzed from the waist down. Because she's paralyzed, she has to have an indwelling Foley catheter, which causes her to have frequent UTIs. She falls very frequently. She suffers from neglect from her family and then also engages in self-neglect. There's unsanitary conditions in the home, and there's also drug use by families in the home. We have had, this number is actually low because we've had more calls since the slide was made, over 122 calls for falls and lift assists, and we have transported her to the facility over 60 times. Actions taken, we referred her first to AERS, and they did not accept the patient. We also referred her to APS. APS went in and did a home evaluation. They offered her services, but she has refused all of them. APS found her to be competent, and competency is something that is huge with APS. If they deem that someone has mental capacity, they cannot force them to make choice. People have the right to live how they want to live as long as they're medically capable of making informed decisions. So even if we feel that someone shouldn't live a certain way, if they have the mental capacity to do it, we can't stop them in all situations. So APS is saying that she is able to live this way. We as the fire department really haven't taken no for an answer with this one. So we developed an interagency conference. We're calling it a complex case management. We met with the head of Department of Aging, APS, and AERS, and we also had a district officer on the call. We're continuing to monitor the calls that come in, and we've spoken with our primary care physician, who is arranging for a psychiatrist to come and do a competency test. We've also arranged with the local hospital to set up care alerts in their charting system, so that way the emergency room staff is aware of her care plan. And the hospital is also going to enroll her in their hospital to home program. This is still an ongoing case. Case 2 is a community pathway waiver. This is also referred to as DDA, which is Developmental Disabilities Administration. So these are usually patients with cognitive impairments, and they're frequently in group homes. So this was a 40-year-old gentleman. He really liked EMS, and he really liked the emergency room. He never really had a chief complaint when he called. He liked seeing the lights of the ambulance. He liked taking rides in the ambulance, and he would call the emergency room staff his friends. So he generated calls so that he could have a good time. We spoke with his psychiatrist, who was able to change his medications. Donna also talked with the nurse supervisor of his group home. They were able to enroll him in the Althea's Day program, and they actually made arrangements for him to make weekly visits to a fire station so he could still have that positive interaction with the fire department, but not by using 911 to do it. So after those steps were taken, we have had no more calls for him. Okay, this case is a 89-year-old female. She had 4 calls for falls and for lips assists. She lived alone with her husband, and he was becoming overwhelmed with caring for her. There was some interaction from the son, but it was intermittent, so he couldn't be relied on fully to help take care of her. She was referred to AERS. The social worker did an assessment and found that her income was too great for medical assistance services. So they provided a respite application. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with respite care, but what it is where a healthcare provider will be hired to come into the home, or they'll be placed in a facility on a temporary basis to help give the family a break from taking care of someone with significant needs. They were also provided with assisted living facility subsidy information, so that there could be partial payment for this female to be placed in an assisted living. We made arrangements for a follow-up with her primary care physician for pain management, and she was given information on the Elder Plus program. This is done through Johns Hopkins, and it is an all-inclusive care for the elderly. And then she was also given information on the Hoover Center, which is for the visually impaired. After these steps were taken, we have had no more calls for service for her. Community First Choice. This is a program that this gentleman had already been involved with. He was a 65-year-old male. He had 19 calls, all for falls. The Community First Choice was already providing him with an in-home aid, but they were only there for a few hours a day. Donna contacted the nurse manager for Community First Choice and worked with their planner to increase his hours of service. They were able to find out that he was only falling when the aid wasn't present. So she was able to get his hours of in-home aid service to 84 hours a week, which was about 12 hours a day. So after he got more support in his home, we have had no more calls for service. Homeless referrals. This gentleman was 78-year-old. He was actively diagnosed with lung cancer when we got this referral. I believe this gentleman was on the east side, and they had received 27 calls for service. He was having difficulty getting food. He didn't have access to his medications properly, and he obviously was homeless. Sarah Boz is our liaison with the health department for the homeless. She's wonderful. She was able to provide him with all of his needs, and he was placed into a hotel. Behavioral health. This actually fits perfectly into the COVID age. This gentleman had moved from New Jersey, and since moving from New Jersey, he did not have a mental health provider, so he was untreated for his bipolar and anxiety for over a year. COVID struck, and his anxiety became much, much worse. He had called EMS several times, all related to his anxiety, and he actually initiated this process. He asked for help finding a mental health provider and getting some resources. So we were able to make referrals to the Baltimore County Mental Health Services and to the Mental Health Association, and they actually provided him with a coronavirus anxiety toolkit, which I didn't know was a thing until now. So he has been adhering to his outpatient follow-ups and has not needed the fire department services. Okay, Department of Aging. This was actually a case that I had when I was on a medic unit. I had responded to a nursing home, and this gentleman told me that he was not receiving the care that he had expected. Since his arrival there several days before, he had not been dialyzed. He had been placed there after surgery and was receiving no wound care. He hadn't been bathed. He had orders for pain medications every 4 hours. However, the staff was refusing to give it to him except for every 12 hours. So he was, he had intractable pain when I got to him. His surgery had been done at Johns Hopkins. We took him back to Johns Hopkins, and I made reports to the staff there. I also initiated an iCARE referral, and Donna contacted the ombudsman. The ombudsman is, it's a program that helps protect the rights and promote well-being of nursing home residents. They also work with assisted living facilities, and their job is to resolve complaints and problems. So Donna contacted them, and then Hopkins and the ombudsman were able to get him placed in a different facility that took care of his needs. The Image Center. So there are agencies throughout the county that provide assistive devices for people. This individual was a 59-year-old female. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and was having increased problems with mobility. She lives alone. She was trying to keep her apartment tidy, but because of her mobility issues, she just wasn't able to. She very strongly wanted to remain independent. We had had over 25 calls for her for falls and for helping her do transfers. Donna made a referral to the Department of Aging, and they helped arrange transportation services for her. She was referred to the Department of Social Services, who arranged IHOS. IHOS stands for In-Home Aid Service, so she has someone come in and help her a few hours a day. She was referred to the MS Society, and then the Image Center was able to provide her with assistive devices. One of the ones that she was able to procure was a transfer commode, so that she was able to get herself on and off of the potty chair without falling. So that's really been helpful for her. So the Image Center is just one agency that we have access to that can help provide our patients with these devices. They cover roughly 70% of the cost of a device, and the patient's responsible for 30%. So if you have something that costs $1,000, they're only going to have to pay $300 of it. So it's a good service for our patients. Danielle, you're muted.
Talking away. So the impact of COVID, a lot of agencies are still today working remotely, so that's very challenging when we're trying to make an effort to be able to correct something. So a lot of home visits have been temporarily suspended, which is why it's even more important to paint a really good picture of the home and the surroundings. Is there rotten food, waist-high trash? Is there feces? Just really describe the living conditions, if that's truly, the issue, or whatever the issue is. We just need to paint a really good picture of it. So communication has become very difficult. It's often a hindrance. So we have to be creative. Amanda was telling me about a time when they had to send an engine crew out to let them in the door because they were coming and no one was answering the door. Well, the person wasn't able to get to the door. So these are things where, you know, they'd show up, they don't answer, they leave, or they make a phone call, they don't answer, they try to call back, they don't answer, they leave a message, no one answers, no one calls them back, they give up, they send a letter and they're done. So this is where we just have to be, you know, constantly on them. And I know Amanda and Donna went out, what was that, 2 weeks ago, and, you know, like, force them to go in and handle something. And this is, you know, this is what we need, because right now, more than ever, people, you know, they need help, and we can't allow COVID to be able to stand in the way of being able to help people. So, you know, if there's an issue that we have with them, you know, being able to get into a home, or being able to, you know, have someone go there and dial the phone for them, maybe they can't get to the phone. These are things that we might be calling on crews to go out and help us with, because there's no other way, if they're working remotely, to be able to accomplish things.
Another example of that, we had a gentleman that was extremely hard of hearing. AERS was trying to contact him. He answered the phone, but because of his hearing loss, they weren't able to talk to each other at all. So the volunteer company responded to a call, and at that time there had been communication from the integrated health office with the volunteer company, and they actually stood there with him, dialed the phone for him, and was able to communicate for him to AERS to get him the help that he needed. So as Captain Knatz said, we just have to be creative. Solutions can be found, but it's going to be a team effort to make it work.
All right, so I talked a little bit in the beginning about the future of iCARE and the way we see it going. And, you know, obviously Donna's been in, you know, the health department and now the fire department for 30 years. So I don't anticipate her being here forever. So, you know, is there going to be another nurse? Are we going to transition this into, you know, our own integrated health, where we have to get as much information from Donna as we can before she eventually moves on to, you know, retirement? But obviously expanding this office is what we as a department need and what our community needs. So that's, you know, I know that's the goal. Obviously, you know, there are many things that we have to do before we get there, but I think we're already in a good direction with having Donna. Amanda's up there now. She's learning a lot from her. So I foresee that being a very valuable resource in the future for us. And, you know, we'll see where it goes, but obviously it's the future of any department, you know, because we're going to get to a point where we just can't transport everyone to the hospital, and there are needs that we can meet in other ways besides taking someone that just is in need of assistance and taking them to the hospital every day. So these are the things that we need to focus on. Again, we're going to be starting the fall prevention program. So these are the types of things that we want to focus on: preventing people from getting hurt, you know, preventing people from getting sick, helping our community become better and helping them become well, so that we can eventually reduce our 911 calls to those that are truly emergencies and ones that, you know, require that high acuity response. So again, and the impact of emergency room admissions, you know, right now we're in the fall, so we're going to start seeing those rise. We don't want to flood our emergency rooms with these patients who are just in need of assistance in ways that we can, you know, help them. And then of course, cost savings, obviously, that's, you know, a huge impact of that. So I guess at this point, we can open it up to questions. I know I saw a few in the chat.
Yeah, so there are. So I also want to let everyone know that we put the link, or we're going to send out the link right now in the chat for your CEUs. If you want to get CEUs for this, keep an eye out on the chat. Hunter just sent it out. Click on that link, enter a little bit of information. It takes a couple of seconds, and we'll get your MIEMSS CEUs. For those who don't have access to the chat, who are doing this by phone, it's http://bit.ly/iCARE, ICARE 1008. Can't imagine anyone's going to be able to write that down verbally for sure. Continues to be a problem. Anyway, so if you can access the link in the chat, that's great. Then you can do your CEUs. So there were a couple of questions for sure. Let's see. Does Donna have a phone number or Danielle?
I just put
Well,
the
Amanda,
integrated
yeah.
office number in there in the chat box.
The EMS office?
Yeah, the integrated health office.
Oh, got it. I think this may be a person who's on the phone. So integrated health office is 410-887-1930, 410-887-1930. Thanks for that. And then can an alternate or an acting EMS lieutenant handle, or does it need to be a promoted officer? And then it says alternate lieutenant is the same as acting. If that is what you're asking, that was me.
So yes, an alternate lieutenant is able to go out and assess. As far as entering in a SharePoint, they don't have the access to do that, but they can certainly pass on the information to someone, to a promoted officer, or just by calling the shift commander that's on duty that day. Again, if it's a need that's emergent, and they can try and get a hold of Donna if she's available and not dealing with another client or a situation. But again, using the iCARE form is the best way to do that. So if the alternate's not able to, then reach out to someone. They can get all the information, on the form. They just can't put it into SharePoint.
Then the iCARE form is shared directly with the other agencies. That's why it's so important for that to be in that system, because it's going to go directly to Adult Protective Services, to AERS, so everything is in writing for them. And then that information doesn't get lost from being passed like telephone, through multiple people.
So I think that answers the follow-up from the same person. Would a paramedic that is qualified as an acting lieutenant be a resource if an EMS officer is not available?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, they can go out, they can assess the situation, gather the information, and then just pass it on, to someone to be able to put it into SharePoint.
So those are the only chat that I can see right now. I'll just respond and just make a comment that what amazing stories, right? Of being able to provide assistance to our community in a way that's just so desperately needed. On one hand, right, it's so heartbreaking to see how much need there is out there. And number two, that there are so many amazing resources. It's just a matter of connecting the dots. So
I saw a question from Casey to Amanda.
So the Image Center is for the entire county. They had some extra grant money, and they were trying to do a project just on the east side to get ramps installed for people, get other assistive devices, chair lifts. They have actually given people stair chairs for their homes. But because of the extra grant money, they had a limited amount of time, so they wanted to focus on just the east side to try to use up those funds before they disappeared. So the short answer is no, it's not just for the east side.
So Amanda, that program is finished, but actually accessing the Image Center is, a countywide resource.
Yes, and they still have funding available, but it's going to revert back to the 70-30%.
Okay.
So there's another message that says, we have a patient who calls multiple times a day, or we receive calls from citizens who find him lying on the side of the road. We can't possibly transport him every time he calls. What should we do? We know social services have been involved.
So in that situation, I would say if they are able to call tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow anytime, actually, Donald will be there. You can give me specific name information. We can look him up and see if we have a referral. We can check in the system and see if he is receiving services through one of the agencies. And if not, we'll get the process started.
Beautiful.
But I think the most important thing to understand is that this is not going to solve every problem. Sometimes we get people that just don't want help, or we exhaust all of our resources. we are working with government agencies, and it's very important that those agencies cooperate with us, which doesn't always happen. So please understand, we will do everything in our power to help these people, and we really, really like making it work. But in some cases, it's just not feasible. But please understand, we're doing everything we can.
What's the role, what are you guys, what's the experience been with the crisis intervention team? I feel like with the Baltimore County Police Department, they have crisis intervention folks there more often recently than it used to be. That's my perception.
No, I agree with you. Crisis intervention has recently increased their hours of service. So they have 24 hours of service now. They have 2 units that respond, I believe, in East Side and the West Side. My understanding is that they're usually very busy. I know in my other role in the opioid world, we have seen an increase in overdoses, and domestic violence has increased, substance abuse has increased, depression, anxiety, those kind of things have increased. So the crisis intervention team has definitely been busy in COVID era. We, the Integrated Health Office, actually have reached out to their lieutenant, and we're going to have a meeting with their team, not next week, but the week after, and try to see how we can collaborate more together, because a lot of our patients do cross over from our world into theirs.
Great. That's all I see right now in the chat. Anything else, you guys?
I don't have anything. Amanda, do you have anything else?
Nope, I really appreciate everyone tuning in and listening to our presentation.
Oh my gosh, we're so thankful that you're putting this together and leading these efforts. It's so important. It's so needed. And I think particularly on the volunteer side, I think we're not 100% sure how to navigate that process. Somebody said, what does the COVID packet consist of that you mentioned?
So I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I didn't know that existed until I saw this slide. My understanding is that it is a packet that is provided by the Department of Health, and it just tries to help people deal with the emotional side of COVID, the increased anxiety that people are having, and trying to give them some wellness activities. Don't quote me 100% on that, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, it has resources, kind of like what you said, Amanda. It's a lot of wellness things, and there's a lot of information about the virus and things that you can do to protect yourself. And so it's really just a really huge packet of informational type things that they can hand out to people that are having a difficult time dealing with COVID. And, you know, just to find ways to go out into the public, because a lot of people will not go out because they're truly concerned about COVID. So it gives you ways to, you know, be safe when you go out, and washing your hands. And so it's basically a huge informational packet of things.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Thanks again for all that you're doing to move this forward.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.